Hello and welcome to Bits Box World, builds made easy. Hi there, I hope you're having a great day. I certainly am, because my parcel has arrived from Green Stuff Worlds and I'm looking to do some more Sprue Goo moulding. So I wanted to get some new moulds, and this time, instead of doing a fantasy set, I'm going to be doing a more sci-fi edition. So looking to get some good terrain pieces up for my Warhammer 40,000 battles or kill team. So these ones here I saw over on Green Stuff World, and there's a whole variety. So sci-fi buildings, I bought a factory set and some sort of pipes and consoles and things like that. So let's have a look at these molds. This factory set, it comes with 3 different molds that you can create a whole variety of different things. So there's some options that they give you on the leaflet, but you could be a bit inventive, and I'm gonna partly follow what they suggest but also be a bit inventive as well. These molds though, they do look awesome. There's so much detail on them that I'm really hoping transfers onto the goo. But I am noticing also that the depth of the molds isn't as deep as the fantasy set, so that might mean that I have to use my goo in a slightly different way. Anyway, whilst my goo was gooing, I saw this empty jar. It's my wife's jar, but I nicked it anyway, and I thought I'm gonna make some more goo. I've got this broken fan, doesn't work anymore, doesn't charge, and it's all snapped. It's quite hard plastic, so I wonder if I could sprue goo this fan. I don't know. So what am I going to call that then? Fan goo, I guess. First off though, just need to take the fan to pieces, and I was only kind of came up with this idea because my other goo was gooing and melting down, so I had a bit of time on my hands to make another goo type that could be something useful. So yeah, just breaking it all apart, cutting it all up so it fits nicely in the jar, and making sure that it's all ready to melt down, ready for the fan goo. And then using just the same thing that I'd use on my sprues, which is the acetone 100% pure. Filling the jar up then. Certainly this jar's not going to be used for jam anymore. And letting it melt down. So it's been in the acetone for about an hour. And certainly the plastic is starting to goo up a little bit. The acetone is changing to a black colour though, so I guess there's some dye in that plastic, don't know. With all of your goo then that you're using, whether it's sprue goo or fan goo, I always handle it with my gloves. Don't want to get this exposed to your skin for very long. And then using a utensil, metal is probably best, just to remove the goo. So I'm ready to start putting it into my moulds. Now, Sprue Goo is super sticky if you touch it with your gloves or anything that's like wooden or anything like that. It is super sticky, but it sits nicely on the mould just whilst it's getting ready. And what I do is I leave it for about 10 to 15 seconds, and that just lets the acetone on the edge just evaporate. And then you can touch it and it doesn't stick to your gloves and get everywhere. You can start maneuvering it and squeezing it. It's a bit more like Play-Doh at that point, and yeah, ready to use. I like to flatten it out, certainly when I'm using a mould, and then just pinch off a little bit, because if you have too much goo you get loads of air bubbles underneath, and that's the bit that I'm trying to avoid. I don't have a vacuum container that sucks out all the air, so the way that I do this is I press it down into the moulds. And then I do roll over it sometimes with a bit of a roller. Not me rolling over it, a bit of a roller. A metal roller is good. So whilst those moulds are getting ready, let's have a look at this fan goo and see if this has become anything that could be useful for my model making experience. There's a lot of acetone that's left in there, so it's not really worked its way into the plastic in the same way it does with the sprues. But certainly we've got a sludge at the bottom, but it's going to be very, very wet I'm going to persevere though, because I wanted to give this a go. Obviously, make sure when you're using any Sprue Goo that it's in a really good ventilated area. And this one certainly is just super, super wet. It's like venom, venom being poured onto my mould. And hopefully I can maneuver it in a way that it's actually going to make something useful. And while I'm doing that, I just wanted to give a big shout out to everybody that's been subscribing to the channel. Every time you subscribe, like, or comment on a video, it really helps me out. And I'm so thankful for the community and how my channel has been growing. So awesome job, everybody. Thank you so much for being part of the Bitsbox World community. Let's get back to the proper reason that you're here then. The Sprue Goo and the moulds. Let's have a look at these and see if they turned out into anything useful. What I would say is these moulds have got a lot more detail than the fantasy moulds. So there's lots of like gratey effects, like grating and metal effects. So it's not actually taking on the mold composition as best as I was expecting. They still look good and they still look like something I could use, certainly if I wanted to make some form of sci-fi acid attacked place, something like that, something where there's Tyranids have been, I guess. But the great thing with the Sprue Goo is you can make tons of this stuff, and it is using those sprues that you were just going to chuck away or recycle anyway. Let's see if the fan goo was any better. Fan goo. Goodness. Struggling to say that, but there we are. So let's have a look at it then. So I used this on one of the molds that has sort of really fine detail. And actually, they've come out really quite nice. Some of them are terrible. But certainly the screens and the keyboard and these little hand sensors as well, they look awesome. So I really think that, I don't know, you have to have tons of fans, I guess, to melt down. But as a bit of an experiment, that's worked out really well. So I've organised all of the actual Sprue Goo stuff, and I'll just show you a bit of a comparison. Some came out a lot better than others. And certainly usable, so if you're wanting to use a war-torn, smashed up place. But if you want something that's really pristine and looks really, really great, then maybe not. But having said that, this is just waste that I was getting from my modelling world, and when I build my miniatures, just using that waste to something as an advantage. And certainly if they don't come out in the way that you are hoping, or you wanted to try again, just goo them up, stick them back in the jar, and then melt down to be Sprue Goo for you to just try again to put in the moulds and make something with a bit more detail and a bit more sharp on the how this comes out. But certainly you've got the ability to just really have a good go with this. Some come out better than others, but you've got an endless opportunity to make your own bespoke terrain pieces for Warhammer, which is really awesome. And the great thing about it, because they're plastic, because they're just from those sprues, you can just use a bit of plastic glue to glue them all together, and they will stick together hard and fast really, really well. And what I really liked was some of the extra detail pieces that I did get with the molds really helped it to come together to look a bit better than what I was first expecting. So as an example, this hand sensor here didn't come out great, but I just stuck a little hand sensor on top of it, so it made it look a bit better with a bit more detail. And it's just being inventive and just doing some really fun and awesome bits along the way, and having a really good go at just making and crafting some bits as well. And certainly it means that I don't have to buy terrain. I'm getting terrain every time that I buy some models. I'm basically getting the tools and the extra bits and bobs to really be able to make my own terrain whether that's for fantasy or for sci-fi purposes. And I do really like these little TVs, and the keyboard there really make those look great. So this piece I made as a sort of standalone lab tower. I made a multi-purpose TV, thinking about what would it be, Astra Mechanicus or something like that, for Warhammer 40,000 that a Space Marine goes to get all of the details. And then I made this lab stroke watchtower element here. So really liking how this comes out, and from a distance it looks actually really quite decent. And I'm gonna paint it up like it's been hit by acid or something like that, like it's been in a Tyranid war-torn battle, and their innards have gone on everything and started to corrode stuff. And then my other little tower I've stuck on the side as well, so I can take that on and off, but I've made it fit on there, so it could be an extra piece to make another tower on top of the lab, or you could have it as a standalone piece on its own. But there we go. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed just my experiments. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Like this video, share it around, and I will see you in another video soon. Thanks for watching Bitsbox World, builds made easy.